Good evening. Happy Wednesday. I hope that you enjoyed that preview for an amazing movie, Daddy Mode. And then also just welcome you all to this conversation. So my name is Dr. Brandon Frame. I'm the founder of The Black Man Can. And this is The Men's Den. And today we're talking about fatherhood, we're talking about entrepreneurship, and we're talking about purpose. I have a really dynamic panel for you to have this really awesome conversation. The Men's Den is our video podcast from The Black Man Can. We take it around the country. We do taped conversations. We have live audience conversations. So grateful that Rob, saw the work that we were doing and said, you should bring this to HUE. And so here we are. And we're going to really have a really powerful conversation. And so how we start off the Men's Den, I could sit here and read off each one of these gentlemen's bios, but that might take up the whole hour. Because they're so amazing dads, amazing entrepreneurs, and the things they do. But how we start off the Men's Den, for those who, if you haven't seen an episode, is we actually started off by each panelist answering this one question is, why are you him? And the reason why we start with why are you him is because a lot of times when we do get together as brothers, it's always kind of, you eat the humble pie, It's like, yo, bro, I'm just trying to be like you, man. I see you doing your thing. But this is an opportunity you want to introduce yourself. But by telling us why you're him, why you are the dad of dads, why are you the entrepreneur of entrepreneurs, right? And the work that you're doing and the impact that you're making. So Foley, we can start with you, and then we'll go down the line.
Many are called, few are chosen, and I'm chosen. One of the many people are called to write, and few are chosen to be part of the creative artist agency, to be able to create content, to be able to work with esteemed writers and directors. I think if we're allowed to just really, pump up our chest, I would say that. And very proud to be able to be here, talk amongst Boston Giants and Connecticut Giant. All right. And little old me. So thank you.
Awesome.
More humbleness, right? Check. Yeah, more humbleness. Little old me, right? Shamel Idiokitis, known as Real P. I've been him since I came out the womb. I'm a Leo, so you know how that energy go. But no, my goal is always to elevate the city, make the city fun again. I think we're doing a good job at that. Continue elevating the creatives, create platforms and infrastructure for them to be successful and get money and do what they do best out here in the region. So I take that baton and I hold that close to my heart and make sure that I'm doing my part as a fellow creative, but also as a fellow business owner. I guess I'm him because I'm willing to collaborate as much as possible. I'm willing to extend my arms and open up my resources to anybody who needs it. So, I'm here, and I'm gonna continue to be him.
Facts, love it, Rob.
Rob Eugene, I would say I am him because I'm showing what's possible. I come from humble beginnings. My parents are immigrants from Haiti, came here with nothing, worked hard to provide for me and my sister, and I've just been working since I could work. I started working at, I think, 14, and I never stopped working. We're right now here in my space at HUE BBoston, and it's the only black-owned establishment in Back Bay. So I'm just showing.
Clap it up for that.
Thank you. I think I'm him because I'm showing what's possible.
I love it. As you see, we got this dynamic panel. I got tons of questions for you all.
It's a little unfair because you said boast, and then I boasted. You know what I'm saying? Little unfair.
I'm sorry about that. So getting into just thinking about our conversation today, Kings in Action, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, purpose. What I want to start with and thinking about this journey that you have all been on. Each of you are building something special with your brands, your businesses. Take me back to the moment when you realized that fatherhood and your purpose had to coexist. Right, because you most likely were doing some entrepreneur, you were working, and then you got married, you had your children, and so now it's like, okay, fatherhood and working have to coexist. Tell me about that moment and what that felt like and how you thought about moving forward.
I'll start. So when my second daughter was born, I was ultimately promoting full time. So I essentially was a stay-at-home dad. My wife worked during the day, and most of my work was either at home or at night, like was when I was out. So I came across this saying, I forget who it was, and I share it all the time. But if you're gonna be the man in the night, you gotta be the man in the morning too. So it was like, no matter what kind of night I had, whether I had too much to drink or I stayed out later than I should have, that next morning I had to just wipe it all off and, be a dad. So I think that was a time when, being able to be there 24 hours, not 24 hours, but during the day raising my daughter was that time for me.
I love that. I think that's like a very powerful thing, right? You work night shift, right, based off being promoter, but I have to show up right when I get home, like, because I work at night, but I got to work during the day too. So I love that.
That saying, like me and Rob were having a conversation one day, and he just said that to me just like randomly. It wasn't like he was trying to be profound, but like that stuck with me. That was maybe like 3 years ago. And I feel like that changed my outlook on a lot of stuff. Like I was always an active dad. I was always present. But I feel like that like lit a different fire under me. Like, oh, I need to be the man during the day. Like I can't be tired. I can't be drinking crazy at night because I got to show up in the morning, So I think for me, that moment, was my second child as well. They say a lot like a woman becomes a mother when she finds out she's pregnant. Like a man becomes a father when the baby comes out. But like my first son came out when I was 23, and I was ripping and running and trying to be the man, trying to be him. But I think I grew more once my second child came along, and I really understood love. I really understood how to care and be there for my family. So that changed my outlook on a lot. Like seeing him and understanding that he needs me, his brother needs me, his mom needs me. So I think that again lit another fire under me, but also taught me that I need to be more sustainable in my moves. I need to be more intentional in my moves, not just like taking every opportunity because I think it's an opportunity.
Intentional with the moves. I think even many women in the room can relate to that, right? That like especially then at home with family and being intentional about that. I love that. Love that point. Foley.
In 2020, when I won the writing competition for Viva Valet, and I got my then agent at Creative Artists Agency, and it was suggested that I move to LA and make that decision to move to LA. So at that point, I had to make the decision what was the most important thing. That decision, by standing my ground and saying I'm going to stay in Boston, I want to be there, present, basketball games, soccer games, t-ball games, etc. Blessed me. So that was the moment.
And I just want how just because we are in Boston and everybody here loves the 617, but some people will say, right, certain industries you got to move, right? You can't. Like I'm from Connecticut, and people will say like, "Oh, you can't do it from Connecticut, right? Or you can't do it from different places if it's not New York City, if it's not LA, if it's not Atlanta." Just can you share like how you can build and be great right here in the 617?
I think when it happened, COVID hit at the same time, and so remote work was something that everyone was doing. So I think I was at the right place at the right time. But I think being intentional about wanting to stay in Boston and still networking, being able to have coffees, what they call coffees with individuals, and being able to showcase my work, even though I wasn't even there in LA, made me hungrier. I became more focused and trying to figure out how to actually talk to these people. Where could I engage with them, even if it wasn't on the street, something that was more meaningful. And so I did a lot of LinkedIn, what I mean? A lot of LinkedIn, a lot of, talking to my friends, and then, showcasing my work through there, so having one person connect me to another person, and then just validate me based off of the work that I'm presenting. So presenting good work validation, presenting good work validation, presenting good work validation, just always presenting good work. That is the thing that kind of allowed me to do what I was doing, because I always focused on the work.
And you say you was like, it's not true. So, tell me.
No, I mean, I think that's just a myth, a misconception. You could thrive anywhere you at, especially in this day and age, in this virtual, economy. It's all about doing. People make excuses. People get in their own way. Like, I'm a firm believer in not, like, internalizing what I can't do. Like, oh, my gosh, I can't do that. Or if I wake up and I'm like, oh, my gosh, I got a long day. Now you're getting down on yourself. You're getting in your own way. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of the times it doesn't matter where you are. Like, there's a flight that you can take, and there's an email that you can send, to start that conversation. So it's all about taking that leap and doing it, as cliche as it sounds.
Absolutely. No, facts. I love that. I currently live in the Bronx, and so
so you in New York, you good then? Huh?
So no, but when you're in New York, when you're in New York City, people in the Bronx feel the way that many people feel in other places, because they'll be like, the way the Bronx is perceived within the 5 boroughs, like there's just a different type of passion, like especially when you talk to the Brooklyn people. It's a whole thing, and so
you got a Brooklyn guy right there. So,
but so I it resonates. But ultimately, being from Connecticut, and even when I got to college, Foley was talking about our Morehouse experiences, like, oh, you're black people in Connecticut, and so I got those things, and it's like, no, there's really great things, and you can make it from Connecticut, you can make it from Boston, and many other places. So
yeah, I mean, I think Boston is one of the hardest places to make it. That's my opinion. Like, we don't got the population, especially as a DJ. Like, we don't have the population as Brooklyn or Bronx. Like, we don't got the infrastructure for black and brown people. We got to figure it out a lot more. So, Boston is one of the hardest places. If you make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Love that. Something that I'm really interested in learning from all three of you with this one question, and I have like separate questions that I want to ask is, what did fatherhood teach you about leadership that business couldn't?
You go ahead. You can go ahead. I got to think about that.
I would say empathy, maybe. You're raising young people to become adults, and personalities are changing. Their perspective on the world is not the way you see it. You're kind of forming that as they're forming it in other spaces between school and friends and other things, television, social media. I think taking that attitude or, attention that you have with your children and using some of that I have 52 employees here, and everyone's different. So if you don't lead with empathy, it's going to be hard to really communicate effectively with them.
Empathy.
Yeah, patience. I'm kind of an impatient businessman. I'm like, yo, what's going on? Like, we got to get this done. We got to, get here, do that. Yeah, chill. But I think my kids really taught me how to, like, buckle down and, realize what the end goal is. And, like, everyone's route's different. Even when you're working with people, like working with Rob, we got a team of 8 for Silk. Everyone moves at a different speed. And I have to respect that, knowing that these people know the end goal, they're going to get there, how they get there, So I think, raising 3 young boys, you got to be patient with them, and I learned a lot, in terms of like dealing with clients, dealing with fellow business people, and just being patient, understanding that everyone has things going on in their life.
It's a combination of what both Rob and Jamel described. It's kind of like a Bible verse, love is kind, love is patient, right? And not boastful, right? And I think, fatherhood has really taught me that. Being really patient with my sons, being really patient and being kind with them, not just kind, like, when I say kind, it's the kind where it's still firm but yet still loving, right? So that type of kindness and that patience, it really translates where, when you're on a set and you're talking to an actor or you're talking to a DP or whomever is on the set as the director and writer, how do you talk to them in a way that encourages the best from them, And I think fatherhood has really taught me how to communicate well, so that's what it is.
I like that. Kindness. We got patience. We got empathy. I think those are very important characteristics, skills that we need to have as men. The question I guess I have from that before I'm kind of, this actually don't have this question written down, is those are often skills, emotions that we're not taught, right? We don't get a chance, like if we go back to our own childhood, right, we're kind of taught to kind of suppress that or not express that. How have you been able to develop that so that you can share that with your children?
I mean, I was fortunate enough to have a father that was amazing. I'm the youngest of 6 boys, so I had 5 older brothers, 5 role models for me. So I mean, I think I'm an anomaly in a sense, but I think, a lot of my brothers really taught me how to like respect women, respect myself, respect money because it's gonna respect you back. And my father kind of oversaw that and made sure we were being accountable. So I think I was fortunate to have those building blocks and be able to, pass it on to my sons, pass it on to my sons' friends who may not have fathers, which is important, and my nephews as well. So, yeah.
My dad was always firm. Haitian dad, typical. Didn't say a lot. Well, when he spoke, you listened. So my mom was a soft one of the two, but I also had an older sister, and I'm a girl dad, so they force you to be soft. I mean, one way or another, I mean, I'm putting in their hands. There's nothing that they can ask for that I'm just gonna say no. I mean, I'll try to figure it out one way or another. It is what it is.
Pain. My father, unfortunately, was in Nigeria. So I was raised with my mom and my sister and my grandpa and my uncles, but I don't think I learned anything from them. In that regard, I think I learned all the worst things from them. So I think pain has been a tremendous way of learning patience and kindness, in your everyday life, and then I'm able to put that in my scripts and stuff like that. So, that's my answer. Yeah.
And the thing about that, Shamel, you said something that was I brought to one of the questions that I have is that each of you are fathers to your own children, but in many ways you may be father figures to the community and to with your own children and their friends and whatnot. So how do you balance giving your everything to your family but also uplifting the broader community?
That's a good question. I mean, it starts with family first, so you can't help anybody unless you help you and your fam first. I don't know. I think it's like putting your ego aside and not thinking you're saving the day or saving someone, but you're there to be a conduit to success for them. You know what I'm saying? Like just opening up the resources, as I said earlier, making sure they're when my kids' friends come over, I don't know if they ate, I'll make a pizza for everybody. It's just like that kind gesture of like, I'm here for you. And then we're sitting down eating, they're talking about their school, talking about their grades, just being an open ear, being, receptible to what they're feeling or the pain that they've experienced. So I think it's, starting with your family, but also just doing small gestures for other people that show that you're a good person, and that builds up to more trust, more respect, and hopefully builds up to a deeper relationship with that person.
Absolutely, I love that.
I would say on a larger scale, I'm pretty good at connecting people, and I think me connecting people opens doors and creates opportunities for others. And so it's like my success is your success, and as I continue to grow, I want the people around me to grow as well. P and I have it's larger than a party, but it's called Silk R&B, and it's an experience, and it's community, it's love, and every time we have an event, it's continuing to grow, and we're bringing people together, and it's like it just means so much more than what it started off as just like a party. If I don't even know if that was how it started, to be honest. Silk is Peace Baby. I came on board years later, but you know, together we nurtured it and grew it together. So I think that on a larger scale, in terms of like being fathers to our communities and to Boston, it's really creating opportunities and opening doors. You know, we were the first to host the Silk at a certain venue, and now that venue is allowing other curators of color to host events in that space. So, you know, we've opened that door and we left it open. You know, it's not like we go to these places, we host these events, and we're like, nah, only us. Like, nobody else can be in here. Like, that's not how we move. So
I still need that equity though, but that's another discussion.
So that leads me to my next question. And so, you know, Rob, we got to connect earlier last year around doing an interview on the Black Man Can. And so I got to learn a lot about you. And so something that really stuck out to me about your story is just the generational wealth, right? That you're looking to build between here and all the other restaurants that you have. And then your family's working those restaurants. And then you had the one where your daughter was working at, right? So you got these businesses, but it's all family. So it's like the money stays inside your family, almost like before $10 leaves, it stays inside your family before it even leaves out, right? And that's really beautiful. So talk to us about that perspective of building that generational wealth with your family and the different businesses, because I think people should hear it, because it was really powerful when I got a chance to interview you and hear that story.
yeah, so my first LLC was coming out of college. You know, I started promoting in college as like a side hustle for some extra cash, et cetera. And then I turned that into a business shortly after school. And then I think the next, you know, I met my wife, well, met my girlfriend at the time.
She met you.
You know, my wife now. So we formed a company together, which was Adorn Boutique Studio, which is a kid spa. You celebrate birthdays. It's, you know, you do facials, get their nails painted. It's really like teaching young kids about self-care and pampering. And so celebrate. My oldest daughter works there when she's home in the summertime. She's away at school now. She's at Spelman. But a little bragging there. I'm a Spelman dad, proudly. So that was the first business. And then I think maybe HUE was next. She's my GM here, actually. We have another restaurant together, Blue Nile, in Jamaica Plain. It's Ethiopian food. My wife is Ethiopian, which makes my children Ethiopian, which makes me Ethiopian by connection. My father-in-law runs that business. So that's two. Rose Bar is upstairs. That's another restaurant, which we all run together. I think that's it for the businesses. But oh yeah, one in the works coming to South End. Darrow's will be reopening as Uptown Social. I'll be working with Nia Grace on that project. So yeah, in terms of generational wealth, you know, you got to take a risk in order for that to happen. And you know, by putting my family at work in these spaces, or to work or working together, you know, we're building it together. So, and you know, when my youngest is old enough, she'll be entering the family business too.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, generational wealth looks different to everyone. You know, obviously he's running establishments and brick and mortars. You know, I think my generational wealth is more so, you know, values and like, you know, those are treasures that you can't really put a price on. You know, if we're talking about finance, I try to put all my kids on my credit cards to help build their wealth, help build their credit. You know, so once they're out of school, boom, you got a 700 credit score off rip. You're ready to go. So, I mean, I think there's different ways to build generational wealth. It doesn't have to be, you know, like we own a business and everyone runs the business per se. So just to put a different perspective on it.
Absolutely. I can relate to that as my grandmother did for me. So when I got out, I was able to get like a really good credit card because she had me on hers. I really vividly remember that because I would use it, but it was an AARP card. And then people were like, how do you have an AARP card? So,
how old are you, young man?
Well, anything you want to share on generational wealth?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't hit my lofty goals yet, but right now, I just think about my name. It's Oluwafalarin Emiola Bidapo, who ultimately means God's favor who God's favor and a man who walks in wealth. And so my wealth right now for me is my sons. And I think about the relationship that I have with them. And I think about making the choices, the intentional choices that I have made over the past 10 years. I can see the relationship be like the relationship that I know that my dad has with my grandfather, best friends. And so for me, being able to cultivate relationships with my sons so that we could both be, I don't know if the word's commissars, if that's the right word, where we both rely on each other as they get older. I think ultimately that is going to be my wealth. And so that's what I'm aiming for. Yeah.
Sounded like you guys describing legacy.
Yeah, I mean, legacy equals wealth
yeah,
too, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, absolutely. Yeah. I just don't want to seem like mine is just, about money and that's it, obviously.
No. Man,
my legacy is definitely...
I'm in your spot every weekend, though. You doing well, bro. You good.
No, but I'm just saying, like, my legacy is definitely going to be my girls and, the impact I leave on the city and whatever, we do, together. So
Absolutely. So I know that both entrepreneurship and fatherhood can both be really isolating, right? And not necessarily have that community. You can feel like you're, on alone on the island by yourself. How do you personally protect and take care of your mental health so that you can show up to be the best father, the best business owner, and show up in purpose?
I think Daddy Mode has been that answer for me personally. Daddy Mode initially started off as a TV show, independent TV show, but it morphed into something that was about community engagement. And as I started creating these programs, like a bunch of dads, Everyday Kings, and Everyday Resilience, I started being able to meet and talk. Like I went and photographed you and you and your daughters, just had conversations. That fed me more than anything else, And so for me, being able to have this creative outlet to talk to fathers, hear about their stories, relate to the stories, create spaces for dads to feel open and safe, because that's a real thing. Men need to feel safe in the conversations that they have, because a lot of times we don't feel safe with the conversations. It's kind of like that Key and Peele skit where you know that key? Okay, never. That key, yeah, that one. Where it's kind of that whispering of like, well, can I say this? But then feeling safe in a community of men to just talk, and breathe. I decided to be the change that I didn't see around me. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, I protect my mental health. I say no a lot. Like I said
No,
earlier.
no is a complete sentence.
Yes. Every opportunity isn't an opportunity, so I try to say no, be home, rest with the family. And I think in saying no that, my wife is the opposite of me. Opposites attract. I'm Mr. Socialite. I want to be everywhere. She don't really want to go nowhere. But for me, it's like being home that gives her an opportunity to be that socialite, to get that energy off. And I think that helps with her mental health, which in turn helps with mine. She comes home, she's a different person, we're happy. So I think it's not a singular, it's my mental health. It's for the crib, it's for the fam. And I think when I see them kind of glowing, happy, doing what they love, that in turn brings me, joy, brings me happiness, and helps my mental health. And I can get out there and do what I do, So I think it's, saying no, but in turn saying no allows other people to thrive, which in turn, brings me happiness.
For me to keep my my mental health, I have like my daily routine. I think that's helped me a lot. I get up, I walk my dogs, feed them, I go to the gym, and then I start my day. So it's like that helps me, put my mind in the right place, before I even take on that email or that call or whatever is gonna throw me off for the day. Like once I have that done, like I'm good for the start. So
I like that. I like the routine.
My routine is like answer emails when you wake up. I need to switch mine.
Thinking about, again, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, talk to us a little bit about, and I would love for each one of you to share a story for this. Like, tell us about a time where you felt like you were failing as a father or in business, and how did you push through that moment? How do you course correct when you feel like I haven't shown up as the best dad or as the best business owner? Can you share a story? And the reason why, because as vulnerable as you would like to be, just because I know people want to hear that, right? You're on the panel. You've been successful. We got Boston Giants here, right? In terms of all the things you've been able to do. But talk to us a little bit just as you pushed through those challenges when you felt like you were failing as a father or as an entrepreneur, and how you pushed through or what steps you took to ensure that you weren't failing anymore.
So as a writer, you're always self-reflective or just reflective. You don't need to be self-reflective, right? You're always reflective. So for me, I'm always in my head, right? So because I'm always in my own head, I have to think of strategies to compensate for what's real versus perception, right? So real facts and perception are two different things, right? And so once I understand what's real versus what I perceive, that's kind of when things get really, like, I think, am I answering this question? I feel it, yeah. Once I understand what's true, things become a lot more clear, right? And going through the process of understanding truth from perception is the way that I'm able to, like, navigate the complexities of business and people and all that other thing. So it's a huge process for me to get to the space where I understand and I'm able to communicate, right? And sometimes that process is 1 minute, sometimes that process is a second, sometimes that's 30 days, right? But that's kind of like the process that I take.
I would say, ironically, the time that I was able to be a stay-at-home dad, quote unquote, the life of a promoter is not easy. Nights can be going well, you could be, successful, so to say, and then something happens and it's over. You don't own the venues, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever management or ownership says. You could be on a good run, it could be 6 months, it could be 2 years, and then it could just stop. So, as I was basically self-employed at the time, I didn't have a lot going on in nightlife. It was like one-offs here, the weekly night, whatever it was at the time, and it had stopped. And so financially, I wasn't contributing as much to the household as I had been. And so, that in itself is a burden. Like, yes, me being home saved us money on childcare, of course, but not pulling my weight in terms of, financially was hard at that time. But, my wife was like, listen, it's okay. There are going to be times when she makes more, or there's going to be times when I make more. And that's just the beauty of being married and having a spouse that understands that. And so, we just lift each other up. And at that time, she definitely lifted me up.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, I have so many business ventures that failed as an entrepreneur. That just happens. That's part of the game. But I think 2010 is probably the year where that was the hardest year. Just got fired from my sales job. My son was 1. We just got our first apartment together, and it was like, damn, I'm bringing in no bread. The DJing wasn't hitting how it used to. Rob wasn't booking me, it was tough. It was tough, but I think that allowed me to sit down and reflect. I think I'm a very self-aware person, understand why I'm not getting booked or why I'm not hitting those, success metrics that I'm looking for. It allowed me to also be more creative. And that was the time where, I rolled out. I had a day party called Over Easy. And at that point, day parties were like not a thing in Boston. It was kind of just a thing in DC, in New York. So I kind of took that chance, and it allowed me to take that risk and be creative. And that was successful, which then snowballed into, running my business, forming Silk, being a official curator. So I think it was, losing my job, you know, watching my wife look at me like, damn, who am I with? What's this nigga, this broke ass nigga right here. So like just feeling down on myself allowed me that space to be like, all right, I need to make a change and I need to, you know, be that guy that I want to be.
I will say P was definitely one of the first DJs to start curating events on as a DJ versus just waiting to be booked here in Boston. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you, brother.
I got tons of questions here, but I want to open it up to the audience. You've been listening to the conversation, so you can come around with the mic for those who may have questions from the audience that you want to ask the panelists.
And shouts to the dads in here too. There's mad dads in here, so shouts to y'all.
For sure.
I know that you guys touched on it just a little bit, but what was it that really said, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to hit the ground running, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it? Because you're all fathers. I have not ever met yourself, sir, to the not you, cut it out. But Rob and Shamel or Real P, I guess I grew with them with the outings and just knowing the different families that have engaged with them, mutual friends and so on. I do find it to be very admirable to see you guys sitting there and knowing what you have achieved in your ways. But what set that tone? What was the fire that really pushed you and said, oof, I can't sit here any longer?
I mean, to Rob's earlier point, like being one of the first DJs to curate my own stuff, I think the fire for me started when I was being told no a lot. You know, being told what I can and can't play in club nights, doing the club circuit, being told, oh, you have an idea to do this? Well, we'll give it to you on a Sunday night, not a Saturday, or you can't do that. You know, like being told no, having all those doors closed, I think really made me not only want to kick down doors, but like construct my own crib and, you know, invite my homies over. So I think a lot of that was just, you know, I guess not destiny, but like, what's the word? I can't think of the word. Like we needed to do it. Like it had to be done. You know, I feel like no one else was, you know, trying to take a risk out here. A lot of the times, everyone was just kind of sitting within the default settings of the city. No one was trying to, you know, EQ it up a little bit and, you know, knock down different people to get where they need to be, but also lift up other people too. So I think a lot of it was just like hearing no a lot, hearing what to be, being told what you had to do and what you had to be. You know, that's the Leo in me. Like, you can't tell me nothing, so I'm going to do it that way and in the way that I want. So that was it.
Hear you.
I think the pivoting point for me was the pandemic. You know, prior to the pandemic, I was working at Hennessy as a marketer, and I was promoting and, you know, doing all of the nightlife things and being out 4 to 5 days of the week, tired all the time. You know, and so the pandemic was like a reset for me. And, you know, it was like, what am I going to do coming out of this? Like, I don't want to go back to doing the same thing I was doing before. What can I do to like really affect change, not only for myself, but for the community and for Boston? And so one of the first people I hit up during that time was actually Real P about Silk. I said, hey, listen, I love the party. I love what you've been doing. I really want to work with you in growing this into a larger like entity and growing the spaces that we're in and where we can host them. And sure enough, we did that together right after the pandemic. La Fabrica for a few months, and then Big Night Live on a cold, rainy Thursday, winter night in March. Yeah, that was scary. And we sold out. You know, ended up being 1,500 people that night on our first attempt at being in that space. And then in addition to that was like, you know, I had been working in all these different establishments, making venues tons of money for over 20 years in my nightlife capacity. I started in college, as I said. So, you know, I've hosted brunches, day parties, fashion shows, nights, you know, just parties, etc. And it was like, I could be doing this for myself. And so the pandemic is when I really started the search for a venue and landed here.
Yeah, I think that's huge too, because like, you know, we get booked as DJs or promoters, and you know, we think we making good money. We think we seeing a good check when we leave. Like, oh, I got paid crazy for 5 hours of work, but you're not realizing what these owners and managers or whoever else is above you per se is making. And I think when I realized that, when I saw what that bag looked like, I was like, hold up, like. I'm not eating. My homies ain't eating. The promoter who's paying me, who thinks he's eating, he's not eating. So it's like, how do we change that narrative and change those actions and you know take back what's ours, because we are the culture per se, you know.
I'm gonna echo some of the words that you were saying. One, I haven't been. I'm not really risk averse, so I think most of us probably aren't, because just jumping into doing something that most people are afraid of not having that check, right? A lot of folks are afraid of that. So you can't be risk averse if you're an entrepreneur. And so I've had different iterations of different companies like these gentlemen here. But when I saw what these dudes was making on no, not you guys. When I say dudes, when I mean, so you know, when I'm working with you know, being fortunate to, I was fortunate to pitch a show and work with Kevin Garnett on a show called Ballers and Passports that you will not see, and but that's how Hollywood works. And we started discussing with my agent, how we would do pre-sales and sales, etc., and who we would sell it to, or if we were going to do it independently. Unfortunately, my agent at the time was independent-minded, or is independent-minded, and I was seeing these production companies. It is pittance, right? Like, they'll give you $100,000 for an idea, but they're making $50 million, right? And so when we started looking at that, I was like, fuck that. No, sorry if that's real. I saw the numbers, and so I'm like, all right, well, let me try to figure out how to do daddy mode as a venture, because this is not fair, and we are getting screwed as artists, as writers, as directors. We are taking pennies to the dollar. So that was my kind of like, let me figure this out.
P, offline, I'll ask you to list out all the ways that Brooklyn inspired you to make Boston a little bit better. But for now, Dr. Frame asked y'all for the moment of failure that's inevitable in parenthood. You're going to feel like you're not meeting your baby's expectations or your partner's expectations, or whatever the case is. But to flip it, what's your nanny boo-boo moment? What's your, like, y'all told me I couldn't do this, and whether in fatherhood or in entrepreneurship, what's the moment that folks told you not to, or told you that you couldn't do something, and you got to stun on them a little bit?
That's a great question. Man, I mean, I've been told not to do a lot of things. And I've done it anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess when my son was maybe like 8 or so, you know, that's not a right thing. Come back to me on that. That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. You answer.
That's tough for me too. I don't know if I have like a moment. I think, you know, there's this misconception that like black men are not good fathers, or there was at a time that we weren't there for our children, and I believe that has changed a lot since its inception of that misconception, if that makes sense. Because I continuously show up for my kids, and I'm sure these brothers do as well. You know, I'll cut a trip early to get back. Like, I was in France with work. You know, I was visiting Cognac when I was working at Hennessy.
Boss talk, yeah.
And my daughter had a recital, and everybody was saying to go to Amsterdam from, you know, and then, you know, the trip's over, we're gonna go. I'll go here. I was like, nah, I gotta go home. I gotta see my daughter perform. So it's like, you know, showing up I mean, I'm sure she wouldn't have cared that much at the time, but it meant a lot to me. Like, I had to be there. So, you know, cutting a trip short to be there for my daughter meant everything to me. And that's just like one example of me being there. Like, field trips, or not, they really don't have them anymore. I don't know why, but, you know, I was always volunteering. I was a dad, chaperoning, and, you know, any way I could be involved, I wanted to be. So, and I'll continue to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's still a hard question. I'm going to still think about that. But I think, you know, recently I've been working with the city a lot. Shout out to my brother John Borders. We put together now 2 volumes of the city's mixtape. And I think where we are, curated that. Oh, for the town, boy. But, you know, 6 DJs, 17 artists, very ambitious project when it first, like, we started the idea. And I think everybody around us was like, don't do that. Like, no one's going to hear that. No one's going to care about that. Artists are not going to flock to it. You know, we kind of pulled some of our money together to make it happen production-wise. And it was a bang. You know, a lot of the artists were able to collaborate with each other off that. We were able to, you know, complete our mission of, you know, creating infrastructure and creating a moment for them to, you know, be celebrities and be creatives. So I think just like if we listen to the folks that were around us, the decision makers per se, we would have not put out that project, and it wouldn't have been a moment for the city. It wouldn't have been a moment for the creatives. So I think that's one situation that's like, yeah, I'm gonna poke out my chest a little bit, even though y'all said nah. Now y'all asking for the next volumes. When's this coming? So yeah, that's one example.
As a creative, I mean, every time I have a weird mind, so when I explain stuff to people, they're like, I get it, I kind of get it, but when I create it and you see it, that's always that moment where it's like, I was trying to tell you, but I guess I got to show you. You know what I mean? So for me, it's actually a continuous process to take an idea that is in my own head and then make it a reality, and then have people feel something, right? So that's always that moment, like, yeah, I told you, you know what I mean? So that's for me.
In each of your respective industries, what are your relationships like with the people who came before you, and what are they like with the people who are coming after you?
Oh, yeah. That's a tricky question as a DJ, for sure. I don't know if there's any OG DJs in here, but, you know, I think the generation of DJs before me didn't do a great job at pouring into us and, you know, keeping us accountable. I think they looked at us as competition. So I mean, everyone needs a mentor, right? But I don't really have a DJ mentor, and I think, you know, that makes me sad sometimes. But, you know, I have my big brothers. I got 5 older brothers, so I was good. But in terms of, like, the relationship to the next generation, I think I'm a sponge. I try to, like, soak up game from them as well, give them game. I'm big on, like, you know, getting people booked for gigs. Like, if I can't do it, I'm reaching out to you. I'm doing the text blast to every DJ I know. So, like, that's the small little things to show that, you know, we're here for them. We're pouring into them. We're putting them on, you know, silk stages to make sure, you know, they're creating their EVKs and they could be marketable out in the atmosphere. So I think I'm trying to do my part for the next generation, because I feel like, you know, the older generation didn't do that for me.
This guy is leading the charge, Rob. I mean, I just met you 3-4 months ago. And Rob is an example of leading by example. Met him 4 months ago. He saw my vibe, saw what I was trying to do. He opened up not only his family, he opened up his venue. He opened up opportunities for me to speak to all of y'all, right? That doesn't happen, you know? And so to answer your question, I feel like Rob and DJP, right? I didn't say it right, did I? Yeah. I really feel like you guys are being the change because Boston really wasn't like that. And you guys are authentic. You guys are yourselves. You guys are open, and your openness is creating spaces for other people. So you guys are doing it. So I appreciate you all for that.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is
Evening.
Judith. I am from the Center for Black Maternal Health and Reproductive Justice. My question, because we are focused on, at our center, we're focused on the mother so much. We're now transitioning to understanding the male's perspective of pregnancy. And from what I'm hearing, I hear that your children, their ages are all over the place. But I'm curious about how the pregnancy and the postpartum period affected you emotionally. What does it do to a man? What do you have to tap into as a man to deal with that period, to help your partner, to help them through the I don't know if all your partners are Black, but the Black maternal death rate here in America is abysmal. So how did that affect you? I'm just curious, emotionally especially.
Before you answer, I want to shout out Tufts. They on April 4th and 5th, they're having their annual Black Maternal Health Conference, but it is focused on what she just asked, which is focused on men and how men are dealing and working through maternal health and reproductive justice. So I just want to plug that they do have some flyers too. So for people who want to be fathers, men who are fathers, is going to be a conference, but it's centered on how we are showing up for Black mothers in the maternal health and reproductive justice. So I just wanted to shout them out.
How we can help you all emotionally as well. It's not just about the mothers. The partners are so vital. So that's why I'm so curious about how that period affected you all.
Yeah, man, that's loaded. I mean, as I said earlier, when my wife was, and my girlfriend at the time was pregnant with our first child, like I was so oblivious to being a good father or being a good man. Like I was just, trying to do me, trying to make money. But, when my second and third came along, one, we gained weight together. I gained a little 15 pounds, 20 pounds with her. But I think I learned to just be present, like when she's having a moment, rub her back, when she's having that cravings, cliche it is, go to that store and grab that. But also like think about the person that I want to be for her and, and make sure that I'm holding myself accountable. So I think once my child came out, it was like, I'm him, I'm the guy. And if I don't show up for myself and show up for my wife, I can't show up for my children as well. So I think, I won't say we got it easy as men, women have it much harder. But I think we just need to show up and be there and be present and not run away when there's chaos or confusion or, when she's going through those hormonal emotions, like kind of center yourself and level yourself and understand that, this may not be forever. This is a now thing. So like, just, be present and be understanding, give her grace. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, but I didn't do anything specific for my mental health when she was, pregnant. I think, her mental health was way more important. And in turn, like I said earlier, seeing her healthy and happy, brought me joy for sure.
Okay, so Brandon and I were having a conversation about this earlier, and we have this meetup called A Bunch of Dads, and we meet together, and when we meet, bunch of dads come through, and this particular conversation was three individuals, me being the fourth or fifth individual, and we were talking about what you just asked, and I bring Brandon into this conversation because one of the topics was men having postpartum, right? And so as the three gentlemen were talking, they're like, "Yeah, man, I just I was feeling depressed, and I don't know why. It's like I felt like I had postpartum," and all three of them said that, and I was interested. I was like, I didn't really have postpartum. in that regard, right? And I was like, and then I asked him, I'm like, why did you? Like, what was? Because I'm trying to understand what my experience was with your experience. Um, and I actually never got that answer. I really want to learn what that answer is, to be honest. Like, what were the reasons that these men felt depressed um, after, childbirth? Was it because they weren't the center anymore? Was it because like they felt they were extremely tied with emotionally with their wives? I don't know. I actually would love to learn what that means, but having these conversations with these men and understanding the different forms of fatherhood that exists, right? From married men to co-parenting men to men, single men or whatever, right? But to answer directly to your question, my experience was I think I was in a daze, to be honest. It was like I was the whole birthing experience was new, right? That was a wild thing, all of a sudden this beautiful baby boy is there, and all of a sudden I have to take care of him, and then take care of my partner, right? And provide. I think I was just in a daze, and I just have pictures to remember from it. That's how for me. So.
I'll answer quickly. So my youngest, she, my wife went into labor really early, and we had to go to the hospital. It was pretty scary, and they found a way to suppress the what do you call it? Contractions. Thank you. I think they had to give her.
Look at that.
I know. The word just escaped me. I'm sorry, and I can't remember what they gave her. I don't know if it was a steroid or something that like prolonged her labor essentially, and then it was she ended up going full term, and then my wife is so funny. So she goes into labor. It's in July. My oldest is in camp. She's like, okay, take her to camp first, and then we'll go to the hospital. Meanwhile, she's already, that's her being a mom. So I drop my daughter off. We go to the hospital all day, just waiting. Now it's time for me to pick up my daughter from camp, so I leave to go pick her up from camp. I get the call. All right, baby's coming. Now I'm flying, trying to get back in time, and she's basically telling Dolly, you can't induce the labor until he gets there. Like, I'll wait. And she did, and then we have our baby, and for me it was just joy. I was just the happiest. I'm a happy person in general, and like this was just another level of joy I had never felt before. And I think I made it easy on my wife because I just didn't want to let go of her. It was like she's mine. And then, as I said before, I got to be there during the day and be a stay-at-home dad, and the bond with my little one is crazy. So, yeah.
I think advocacy is huge too. Like advocating for your wife. My last one was born during COVID, and being in birth during COVID is insane. Like, and we talked about certain things that she wanted, and when we got there, things changed because obviously mask and this and that, and they're rushing and they don't really care about this black woman who's in pain. But it's like I had to check myself and remember what we talked about, and now check the doctors, check the nurse. Like, nah, this is what she wants. This is how we're doing it. So advocating for your wife or your partner, I think, goes a long way. That helps their mental health, helps your mental health, and helps your, help you have a healthy baby at the end of the day.
And I do have a black wife. I know you asked.
Hi, my name is Chris. This is a really interesting event. But as a young black man, soon to be married, so
Yeah, clap for that man. Clap for that man. Yeah, another black man off the market.
So I didn't have a father in my life, so I was raised by my mother. What step do I have to take to take that risk? Because as me, I could tell you an example. Like, I've been scared to take a risk, even though my wife been watching me and stuff like that. I've been scared to take a risk. What advice that you can give a young black man, multiple young black men, to take that risk, even though you don't know what the consequences or the elevation that we have to take, even though we just have to take it?
Wait, what risk are you trying
That's what I was gonna say. What risk were you trying to take?
Like, financially, like, you know what I mean? It's hard to, like, trying to level up, especially in Boston. You know, it's hard to level up, and we have to look everywhere just to find that type of financial, growth. You know what I mean? And your wife is watching you, seeing like what he's gonna do as a man to take that step, what he's gonna do to level like me and her up. You know what I mean? Try to feed something on the table. You know, she's looking at me as a responsibility, as a protector and a provider for to get that right step.
So I think you looking at it as like you feeling pressure from your wife, and don't take
big
it
time.
like don't take it like that. You know, she might be pressuring you, but you gotta treat it as a challenge. You know, you gotta step up to the plate and rise to the occasion. And it may not take a month, it may not take a year, but there are resources. You gotta want to find those resources. You gotta seek them out. The city got a bunch of stuff. Nonprofits got a bunch of stuff. You got to do your homework to be able to take that risk with the education behind it. You can't just take a risk with no. You can't jump off the cliff without the parachute. You got to have something there to make sure that that's gonna open up and you're gonna land safely. So I think is putting your head down, putting your head in the books, in the Googles, and doing the research to whatever industry you want to be a part of, that you want to elevate in, and doing that shit. Like, stop talking about it, stop thinking about it, stop wondering about it, stop trying to find someone to collaborate with. Like, you got to do it, because then other people will, flock to you, per se.
I would just add, I mean, I don't know your fiance, but, a large part of my success has come because of my wife. And you should be able to lean on her just as much as she's leaning on you, in terms of building, because you are building together. Like, that's the point of marriage. Like, you're supporting each other. So I would hope that she's not marrying you for you to just take care of her, because that's not fair to you. And so if, you have dreams and aspirations and she does too, like, you take turns supporting each other in whatever that is, or if it's not simultaneously, it's one after the other. That would be my advice.
I would say listen to the successfully married man, right? And then I would also say just ask yourself questions to, go through a process of understanding why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. You know what I mean? Ask yourselves questions of the what's, the when's, the who's. Those questions really bring clarity to understanding what you're feeling, whether you are projecting those thoughts onto your partner or whether those are internal. You know what I mean? So I think you need to figure that out real quick. And then, because, that type of partnership, it's a lifelong partnership, and it's a make or break, especially, it's really make or break. So I would definitely listen to a successfully married man.
I just want to add, I can't actually speak to the married part 'cause I'm not married, but in terms of just taking the leap, because the Black Man Can started in 2010, but it wasn't until October of 2023 that I left my corporate job, getting paid every 2 weeks, to take the leap. So the first thing I could say, and I'm not, I don't know if you believe in God and whatnot, but so first, right there, a righteous man's steps are ordered by the Lord. So first, like, that's the conversation you get to have, is that, like, your steps are already ordered. So where you're going to be 5 years from now, God already knows, but that's why you're walking by faith and not by sight with what it is that you want to do. And then you get to have that meeting, you get to strategize and be like, all right, here's the plan, right? And if you both are walking in that relationship with God, the reason why she's marrying you is because she sees the God inside of you. So therefore, she knows that you're not leading her in a direction that is going to take the family down. Is you're walking in a way, and God is leading you, and that's why she's walking beside you. Put that plan together, and then you have that faith piece as the anchor, and then all those dreams and those goals are going to happen. That leveling up is going to happen. It's already done. It's just putting that strategy together and believing that He's got you as you make those necessary steps.
You gotta write that down, yo. I need that. Put that in an envelope for me, dog. I need that.
So we're almost at time. And so are there any more questions? I have one last question that I want to ask, but if there's one more question from the audience before I ask this last question, to close it up. Yeah, right here.
How are you, gentlemen? What you want to ask? Is there any powerful pieces of advice or lessons that you've learned from your father or your grandfather that you've deemed so pivotal in your life that you would love to bestow them upon your own children?
My father, he's Nigerian, so he always had some saying that he's always saying to us. But the one that sticks with me the most, and I say to my oldest all the time, is remember what I forgot. And, you know, yeah, it's huge, right? So I think I walk in that a lot, and as a father, like I bestow that on my son because he's 15 now, and he still looks like a baby to me. He's my baby, but out in the world, he's a grown man. You know what I'm saying? So I think I try to like make sure that he knows that he's loved and he has certain values that we live by. He has certain characteristics that are beautiful, and, you know, walk your head high and remember that, you know, because sometimes we forget that as black men. You know, we forget that we're powerful. We forget that we're beautiful and all of that. So remember what I forgot is probably the biggest thing that my father used to say to me that I pass on.
No, I wouldn't say there's a saying, but I think my grandfather in Nigeria, it's his lifestyle is the thing that had a very lasting impact. The way that he treated people, the way that people respected him, the way that I'll just give you an example. So, you know, Nigeria is a place where there's haves and lots of have-nots, you know, and the community that you build is the community that stays with you. And so my grandfather, who was a successful businessman, stayed in a region in Ikoro State where it went from a beautiful environment to the slums, right? That transitioned. And he stayed there till he died. And I asked him, I was like, well, Grandpa, you could afford to move to Victoria Island, right? Right? You know what I mean? Yeah, right? You could afford it, but why are you still here? And he was like, well, why would I leave? I know everyone here. This is my family. I know the security guard. I know this person. I know, like, and that really stuck with me because it's the community that you build, and the community that you pour into is the community that gives back to you. So that's kind of what I learned.
I like that a lot, actually. My dad he didn't say a lot. I mean, my dad now is a very different person than when I was a child. It was very much, I think it was like a Cosby skit or something where it's like, you know, as they get older, they're trying to make sure they get into heaven. And so they become these nicer, softer people than they were when they were younger. You know, like seeing my dad with my kids is like, who is this man? Like, all I got was because I said so. Like, there was no explanation. Like, that was it. Like, but I would say my dad, very much like me now, was very social, knew everybody, everywhere he went, was always a hello, always stopping to speak to someone, couldn't walk like, 10 feet before another person was greeting him. And that was wherever we went, and I feel like that's me now. So definitely something in him is in me now. So
I know Rob, for real.
And just to close it out, the Black Man Can, we have this huge social following, over 1 million followers. So lots of people are going to see this conversation.
Okay, talk. All right, my fault.
and you know, but I'm always I think about today's generation, and I feel like I'm blessed, and maybe you all feel the same way, that like I don't have the same digital footprint that this generation has. Like, I remember a world where I did Mavis Beacon, I was doing Oregon Trail. You know, we didn't have social media and apps. So there's like things I did in college or in high school. There's no footage of that stuff, you know.
A little Black Planet here and there, yeah.
Huh?
A little Black Planet.
Yeah, Black Planet.
Yeah.
Hey, my name was Baller in the Burbs.
Ooh,
that was my name.
That's hard.
But with that, so I think about the digital footprint, though, because of the world we do live in now. So if your children were watching this conversation 20 years from now, because it may very well still be up on YouTube and on Instagram 20 years from now, what message would you want them to hear from you today?
I would say 20 years from now, I would hope that they grew up to be great people. I never seek perfection from my kids. I seek effort, and I seek them just being good people, like being good humans to other people. I spoke about empathy before. I think I'm raising empathetic children, and that's what's most important to me. I think everything else kind of falls into place as long as you're a good person. Good things will happen for you. And just, you know, hope that they remember how I made them feel.
Yeah, man. You know, if you're going to do something, do it for real. Like, that's my slogan all the time, and I say that to my kids. So 20 years from now, I hope whatever they doing, whether it be basketball, whether it be media, whether it be a doctor, like, you doing it for real. You're putting your head down. You're giving your all for it. You're respecting the people around you. And I expect them to do that, and I think that's what they're going to do. So, yeah, just do it for real.
Um,
No, he used to be a rapper.
Yeah. Okay. I think discipline, that's just the one word. I'm a boy dad. I look at the macro, and I look at history, and I'm looking at the world, and I'm seeing different trajectories, and understanding that I'm raising black boys in a time where artificial intelligence is already here, robotics is already here, then being a person of descent from Nigeria and Jamaica, seeing what poverty looks like, and haves and have-nots, and seeing what that really looks like, for me, 20 years from now, I want my sons to be disciplined men. Mm-hmm. Disciplined in the way that will be able to navigate this world, because we are in a paradigm shift. Make no mistake. It is a paradigm shift, and trying to figure out how they can navigate that. So for me, it's 20 years from now, they are disciplined men.
Can we give it up for our panelists? I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. This is a powerful conversation. It'll be clips, and the whole conversation will be up on YouTube pretty soon after we do all the editing. But I just want to thank you, each of you, for being here today, sharing your thoughts on fatherhood, entrepreneurship, and purpose. This was like a truly powerful conversation. I know I took a lot away. I hope you took a lot away from each other, and I know that the crowd and the audience took a lot away as well. So thank you so much. Thank you, Rob, for opening the doors and allowing us to have the Men's Den here. And, enjoy the rest of the evening network talk. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you, fam.
All right.